It's Sarah with Shine.fm, and today I'm going to be reading from Luke chapter 9. Jesus sends out the 12. When Jesus had called the 12 together, he gave them power and authority to drive out all demons and to cure diseases. And he sent them out to preach the kingdom of God and to heal the sick. He told them, "Take nothing for the journey. No staff, no bag, no bread, no money, no extra tunic. Whatever house you enter, stay there until you leave the town. If people do not welcome you, shake the dust off your feet when you leave their town, as a testimony against them." So they set out and went from village to village, preaching the gospel and healing people everywhere. Now Herod the Tetrarch heard about all that was going on, and he was perplexed, because some were saying that John had been raised from the dead, and others that Elijah had appeared, and others still that one of the prophets of long ago had come back to life. But Herod said, "I had beheaded John, so who then is this that I hear of such things about?" And he tried to see him. Jesus feeds the 5,000. When the apostles returned, they reported to Jesus what they had done. Then he took them with him, and they withdrew by themselves to a town called Bethsaida. But the crowds learned about it and followed him. He welcomed them and spoke to them about the kingdom of God, and healed those who needed healing. Late in the afternoon, the 12 came to him and said, "Send the crowd away so that they can go to the surrounding villages and countryside to find food and lodging, because they were remote places here." He replied, "You give them something to eat." They answered, "Well, we only have 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, unless we go and buy food for all this crowd." About 5,000 men were there. But he said to his disciples, "Have them sit down in groups of 50 each." The disciples did so, and everybody sat down. Taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish and looking up to heaven, he gave them and broke them. Then he gave them to the disciples to set before the people. They all ate and were satisfied, and the disciples picked up the 12 baskets of broken pieces that were left over. Peter's confession of Christ. Once, when Jesus was praying in private and his disciples were with him, he asked them, "Who do the crowds say that I am?" And they replied, "Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and others still that one of the prophets of long ago had come back to life." "But what about you?" he asked. "Who do you say I am?" Peter answered, "The Christ of God." Jesus strictly warned them not to tell this to anyone, and he said, "The Son of Man must suffer many things, and be rejected by the elders, chief priests, and teachers of the law, and he must be killed, and on the 3rd day be raised to life." Then he said to them all, "If anyone would come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. For whoever wants to save his life will lose it. But whoever loses his life for me will save it. What good is it for a man to gain the whole world and let use it or forfeit his very self? If anyone is ashamed of me and my words, the Son of Man will be ashamed of him when he comes to the glory and in the glory of the Father and of the holy angels. I tell you the truth. Some who are standing here will not taste death before they see the kingdom." The Transfiguration. About 8 days after Jesus had said this, he took Peter, John, and James with him and went up into a mountain to pray. As he was praying, the appearance of his face became changed, and his clothes became as bright as a flash of lightning. 2 men, Moses and Elijah, appeared in the glorious splendor, talking with Jesus. They spoke about his departure, which he was about to bring to fulfillment in Jerusalem. Peter and his companions were very sleepy, but when they became fully awake, they saw his glory and the 2 men standing with him. And the men were leaving Jesus. And Peter said to him, "Master, it's good for us to be here. Let us put up 3 shelters, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." He didn't know what he was saying. While he was speaking, a cloud appeared and enveloped them, and they were afraid as they entered the cloud. A voice came from the cloud saying, "This is my son, whom I have chosen. Listen to him." When the voice had spoken, they found that Jesus was alone. The disciples kept this to themselves and told no one at that time what they had seen. The healing of the boy with the evil spirits. The next day, when they came down from the mountain, a large crowd met him. A man in the crowd called out, "Teacher, I beg you to look upon my son, for he is my only child. A spirit seizes him, and he suddenly screams. It throws him into convulsions so that he foams at the mouth. It scarcely ever seems to leave him, and it's destroying him. I begged your disciples to drive him out. They could not." "O unbelieving and perverse generations," Jesus replied, "how long shall I stay with you and put up with you? Bring your son here." And even while the boy was coming, the demon threw him to the ground in a convulsion. But Jesus rebuked the evil spirit, healed the boy, and gave him back to his father. And they were all amazed at the greatness of God. While everyone was marveling at all that Jesus did, he said to his disciples, "Listen carefully to what I am about to say. The Son of Man is going to be betrayed in the hands of men." But they didn't understand what this meant. It was hidden from them, so that they did not grasp it, and they were afraid to ask him about it. Who will be the greatest? An argument started among the disciples as to which of them would be the greatest. Jesus, knowing their thoughts, took a little child and had him stand beside him. Then he said to them, "Whoever welcomes this little child in my name welcomes me. Whoever welcomes me welcomes the one who sent me. For he who is the least among you, he is the greatest." "Master," John said, "we saw a man driving out demons in your name, and we tried to stop him, because he's not one of us." "Don't stop him," Jesus said. "For whoever is not against you is for you." The Samaritan opposition. As the time approached for him to be taken up to heaven, Jesus resolutely set out for Jerusalem. And he sent 7 messengers ahead of him, who went into Samaria, the village, and got things ready for him. But the people there did not welcome him, because he was heading for Jerusalem. When the disciples James and John saw this, they asked, "Lord, why do you want us to call down fire from heaven to destroy them?" But Jesus turned and rebuked them, and they went another way to a different village. The cost of following Jesus. As they were walking along the road, a man said to him, "I will follow you wherever you go." Jesus replied, "Foxes have holes and birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head." But the man replied, "Lord, first let me go and bury my father." Jesus said, "Let the dead bury their own dead, but you go and proclaim the kingdom of God." And still another said, "I will follow you, Lord, but first let me go back and say goodbye to my family." Jesus replied, "No one who puts his hand to the plow and looks back is fit for the service of the kingdom of God." I think what's really interesting to me about a lot of these verses is that demons are interacting with Jesus and they're afraid of him. And personally, right now in my life, that is something that is really important for me and I need to hear. And so just remembering that Jesus has command over all of the enemy's forces, and that's just really important in the power of his name, that people can call out demons in his name even when they're not the Christ. That's just really, really cool to me. Don't forget to join the Shine team tomorrow for the next chapter of Luke.